Hey guys, thanks for coming. I just got started. Hello, Mr. Watermeal. Uh, Sleepy Daddy Gaming, welcome. Again, I just got started. Usually, I also post on my blog page. It's a blog called Hive. It's a blog based on a blockchain. But for some reason, uh, it's not working today. I mean, the platform is working, but my YouTube video is not showing on that page, which is very strange. What's going on here? Should work. But what day is today? So it's already Saturday for me. I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. Or depending on where you are, I hope you are gonna enjoy your weekend. I'm just gonna post this anyway. I don't care. Sleepy Daddy says my speaker's now working. Cool workspace. Thanks. Uh, so this has always been my workspace. The only thing that's different is what do you even call this thing? The bamboo plant that I set up there. But this is there because mostly not for the plant. Uh it's mostly for the water actually. I just needed some excuse to have some water there somewhere in my house. And and the little plant is a good excuse. And you might ask, why do I have water? It's a little superstition thing. I'm not religious, but sometimes I go for some of the most ridiculous stuff. Uh there is a thing about Korean culture that has a little bit of shamanism in it. I don't believe in that stuff, but it's like a little rabbit's foot, you know, or a horseshoe, something like that. Guile, is it Guile? Isn't the character from Street Fighter with a missing E or Gooey? Anyways, uh, Gooey says if you look at your cam, you can see yourself code in third person. Yeah, yeah. The camera is pointed at me, which also includes some of my parts of my left screen, which I'm using to monitor my own stream. So you're gonna have an infinite uh, reflections as long as the pixels are there. But the anyways, wait, God of War just came out. Oh, for PC. Okay. All right. Have fun, Mr. Watermeal. So for today, 5 minutes in, I haven't even started working. So today, I want to continue working on my UI. Last night, I worked on the tab stats. I don't know what else to call it. The menu or the stats that come up in an FPS game when you press tab. So I've recently implemented my code that should make it work. I actually have not tested it yet. Backbench says, best way to find out bugs, I guess, looking from a different perspective. How about literally from looking looking from a different perspective? That's interesting. Okay, this is really strange. Something weird is happening with my mic today. Yeah. So my voice is registering on the meter, the mixer, whatever you call that, the bar thing. Normally there is a little bit of noise in the background. I don't see that noise today. Um, so strange. And I'm having the exact setup as I did yesterday, but hmm. Yeah, you hear the keyboard, you hear my voice. There should be like a soft, a little bit of fan noise that I deliberately did not decide to cancel out. Because if I do cancel it out, every time I speak, you hear it along with my voice. But then when I become silent, you hear nothing, and it just goes back and forth. I found that really annoying. Okay, but if it's pretty clean, that's good. Hmm. Wonder what the cause of that might be. I mean, everything is exactly the same. Hmm. That that really bothers me. But anyways, I gotta get some work done. So GUI says, Guil or GUI says, also thanks again for 1 or 2 years ago when you answered my finite state machine question. I always use the way you showed me. I'm not exactly sure which question you're talking about. There have been a lot of questions regarding the state machine. Mm, I'm not sure if you're talking about my Unity project or the very old 2.5D platformer series or the C++ tutorial series. These days, I would always recommend my C++ tutorial series over my 2.5D. But 2.5D platformer series have been way more popular, and I can understand why. But I wouldn't recommend that at all. I actually brought it down at some point, but people were asking, so I just left it back up. Uh, but I think it's great that you're using a state machine. Uh, but also, when you say you always use the way you showed me since, mm, while it's great that you're using a pattern, but you should also know that there's many different ways to write the same result. So when you have a general pattern, there's so many different ways to implement it. So don't just stick to my example. Okay. Joey says maybe it's not what you use anymore, but I've never found anything better. Well, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. But yeah, whether you're talking about my Unity project or my C++ project, I'm pretty sure it'll work for most indie game developers. But for a bigger project, it starts breaking down, and you're gonna need to add a few more moving parts and layers to accommodate a bigger game. So, so again, I keep saying this. Uh, don't just look at my source, or don't just look at my videos, because there's a lot. There's so many different implementations. Uh, so many different ways to do a ledge grab, for example, or detect a punch, for example. There's so many different ways. Uh, there's a Korean saying like there's so many different ways to go to Busan from Seoul. There's many different roads. It's up to you, really. Oh, player state machine. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. That definitely is very old. Mm, I don't use that anymore. Uh, yeah. I now understand exactly what you're talking about. Uh, that is very old code. So mm, today I'm leaning towards using Unity physics as part of the character controller. I think that just makes things not necessarily easier, but uh, it makes more sense to me. Uh, and also with the state machine, I'm not using the scriptable. What was the name? Scriptable object. I'm not using scriptable object anymore when I'm using when I'm trying to create something like the character abilities. That was a very experimental approach, the 2.5D platformer, and it was also my very first YouTube videos, which means the presentation could have been a lot better, or I also skip a lot of the stuff that maybe I should have explained. But then at the same time, once you start explaining things, you got to go way below the Unity GUI level or the Unity scripting level in order to understand C sharp. It definitely helps to understand some of the lower stuff. And you also appreciate the higher level languages more once you understand it, which makes game development just more fun. Um, so that's what I think. Again, the philosophy is don't just stick to one source. Uh, find many different books and tutorials and courses and find out what's best for you. But if you're here, I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy. And I hope we can have fun as a bunch of indie game developers. Okay. I think this is a very interesting topic. Pression. I have no idea how to pronounce your name, but the question is, what do you think about using engine assets to boost the game design, like Game Creator inside Unity? Uh, what do I think? First, I think there's way too many asset flips, which I think is fine because it's something that just happens naturally when you have a big platform. A lot of the stuff might be garbage, but a lot of the stuff might also be very good. Uh, what I hmm, I think. Let me think about this because I think the question isn't really whether the assets are good or not. I mean, that question is important, but as an indie game developer, the more important question is how can you put it together? how can you build your own stuff on top of the assets that you might download. It could be a beautiful looking scene, or it could be some tool like, what was it, the game creator. I have not used game creator ever, so I don't know what that is about, but I use things like the Odin Inspector a lot. I think Playmaker is also really popular. NGUI was really one of my favorites back in the day. Even I don't use it anymore, but I thought that was really good. Uh, what I don't like about these assets, maybe not about the assets themselves, what I don't like about some parts of the Unity community is that they download some of these assets and they immediately start thinking this is going to turn their project into a finished product, which is most likely not going to happen. So that part I don't like. Even though the technology itself might be great, you still need a lot of knowledge and skills to put it together and build your own stuff on top of it. So that's just my general view towards the assets. Jason has a new channel now. Is that what I'm hearing? It looks like it. This is great. So I just subscribed. Video raise. Let's say Odin Inspector, for example. What do you think about it? I think it's great. Odin Inspector is probably one of those things uh, where is not used in an asset flip, most likely. I mean, it's just a tool in your inspector. I don't think a lot of the newbies are drawn to that, but it's great. I think Odin Inspector is awesome. Ben Zico says, where do you money YouTube? I'm not sure what that means. I guess the question is, how do you make money on YouTube? I have no idea. How do you make money anywhere? I have no idea. Uh, but it's a very interesting question because indie game developers, you're always struggling uh, to pay the bills if that's the only thing that you're doing. Uh, I didn't start as a game developer. I started as uh, a finance guy doing managerial accounting for a maritime shipping company, which has nothing to do with any development, any software. Most of the time, we were working with paper, actual pieces of documents and paper. I made decent money back then. Uh, Most of the money that I made is outside game development, but I must say, making YouTube videos and just talking about whatever the fuck I want to talk about has also opened up some opportunities, which have led me uh, to making money elsewhere. So uh, I don't think for YouTube ads, for example, I don't think they're a reliable source of income unless you're really big. But it does open a lot of opportunities. Just what's been happening to me But people have different stories. I've seen someone. I've seen a kid. This was way before YouTube Kids. I've seen a kid make tens of millions of dollars just being a YouTuber. Of course, that kid was a superstar in South Korea. So it's different for everybody, I guess. Mr. Watermeal says, "What do you think about others working on your project with you, like an open source sort of thing?" I've been talking about this a lot because I think open source is good. I would like to open source everything that I'm working on. I'm working alone, so I pretty much own that stuff. But the only exception is so for my current project, my current FPS project, there's a lot of Unity assets that I do not own, so I cannot open source that. But if I could, I definitely would. If my project is 100% made out of the stuff that I own, I would open source it. The question is, so a lot of the question I've been getting is, why do you let people steal your stuff? Well, first of all, I don't think anybody stole my stuff. I don't think I've seen anybody make money out of my stuff. Uh, but but like I but this is I'm just repeating what I said last night. You cannot steal something that is open source, at least in theory. I'm sure you can take it to somewhere else and make money out of it somehow in places like China, for example. But I don't even care about that. Uh, Generally, the more people look at my project, notice it, and use it to do whatever, I'm generally happy about that. So, uh, So this goes directly against a lot of the indie game developers that hide what they do until the very end. A lot of the people on my Discord server, they say I don't want to show it because I'm afraid people are going to take it, steal it. Working on it together is a different story, which I have nothing against. But generally, I just I just enjoy doing whatever the fuck I want, which is why I became an indie game developer in the first place. Sometimes I'll completely scrap a decision that I made a few days ago. Uh, and generally, I'm not that social. So there is an aspect of me that kind of prevents me from working with other people, whether it's game dev or not. I've had the same issue when I was working in some other fields as well. But don't call me antisocial, please. Mr. Watermill says, "Yeah, I just thought about how using others' closed source, the assets kind of messes you up. So, messes you up? Uh, oh yeah, yeah. I think I understand what that means. Yeah, if you use a bunch of assets, then there is some trouble going completely transparent. And generally, I don't think people like paying for digital stuff unless it's something like a some sort of a blockchain where certain data is immutable. But that's very rare. It doesn't happen that often. It's pretty rare. Uh, so I'm not even going to talk about that. Jason says that concept is always comical to me. Your idea is not worth the paper it's printed on. It's execution that matters. Everyone has ideas. You probably don't have something. Yeah, whatever you do, it's very unlikely that it's very unlikely that nobody's seen it before. Sometimes it happens, but that's pretty rare. Um, I don't think most people are creative. Most people are not creative, including myself. Uh, it's it's your even if you did, it is a fallacy to think the best way to make something good is to sequester it and work in secret. Iteration is what makes things good. You need to be battle testing your ideas. Yeah, it needs to be battle tested. It needs to be open. What's the phrase? Sunlight is the best infected, something like that. Sunlight is good, figuratively. You get feedback. People talk about it. Uh, that's how you find some of the flaws. I mean, a lot of the bugs are noticed by other people, people other than you. So feedback is always good. And what's the other phrase? There is no bad publicity, right? Yeah, you need real people trying it, giving comments, and iterating on it to make it something good. One in a million games, like the first Portal, spent thousands of hours in play testing. Yeah, you don't want to place your bet on a 1 out of 1 million chance. I mean, it does happen sometimes, and that's what everybody talks about. Sometimes you have one game that just goes viral on the first post. That does happen. You can't deny that it does happen, but at the same time, it's 1 in a million. It's extremely rare. So while millions of other game developers they don't get noticed at all, even if you do try to go transparent. Uh, I mean, there's I have worked in a company where we only post near the end of development, but that was also because we had a pretty reasonably large marketing budget. So we had a means to show it to a lot of the viewers and go through Q&A and all that stuff within a short period of time because we have a relatively large budget. I mean, in that case, it might be okay, but you're still coming out early. You're still coming out before the game is fully finished. Might run a closed beta or some sort of a closed testing, but that's again, that's I don't think that's that relevant when we're talking about indie game developers with close to zero budget. Gui says, but at the same time, if you think you have a really great and unique idea, you're tempted to not show it before it is close enough to be. You're tempted. Okay, I agree that you're tempted to not show it. Uh, but like I said, it's extremely rare that you have an idea that nobody's thought of before. So I mean, I think there's a very thin line between flat out stealing versus adding value. That's a very thin line, I think. And whatever you think you came up with, most likely you're influenced by something that is extremely popular. Most likely you're just adding your own little style to it. You're adding a little bit of value to what's already been extremely popular. Mm. So I understand the temptation, thinking that you have to, to feeling that you're sitting on a gold mine that has not been noticed. But again, realistically, that is extremely rare, very rare. Uh, unless you're a person that can single-handedly write the entire Bitcoin white paper, something like that. I mean, I don't think a lot of people in the entire world are capable of doing. Jason says, "I'll put it this way: if you have a history of creating successful $1 million games, you're allowed to be paranoid." Yeah, how many people in the world have an entire history of creating successful $1 million games? Very rare. I mean, there is a lot of companies that you hear about, but those are very few companies out of millions of millions of millions. Huey says, let's say I had an idea long ago. I believed I had a genius idea, but when I spoke about it, it fell short. Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the idea itself. Jason said it's more about implementation, which I completely agree with. How it's the details, how you implement them. I mean, you might have 1,000 different products based on the same idea, right? You have a smartphone. There's so many different vendors that give you the final product and or service. They're all different in one way or another. The difference might be small, it might be giant, but a lot of them are built on the same general idea. Yeah, yeah. Your first idea is not likely to change the world. Most likely not. Maybe, but again, that's a very low chance. You might as well go buy a lottery ticket. Louis says, "Yeah, well, I'm by default paranoid on this kind of things. What if someone does consider your game very good, and this person is somewhat dedicated and works faster than you?" That is very rare. Again, that's the chance of that happening. You might as well go buy a lottery ticket at that point. Because once it's out, once you have a product out there in the market, everybody's stealing from everybody else. Again, I think there's a very thin line between stealing and adding value. To think that you can keep that a secret when billion-dollar companies cannot, that's very unlikely. I mean, companies spend a lot of money on security. Pretty much nothing's a secret these days, with the exception of a few things. Uh, Jason says, if your idea is amazing and if the person you tell is able to make it better than you and able to make it faster than you, then screw it. They kind of deserve it. Yeah. But again, we're talking about an extremely low probability hypothetical situation. Like if you're worried about that, how are you not worried about getting hit by lightning? How are you not worried about getting hit by a car? How are you not worried about your house falling down on your head? Those things probably have greater probability of actually happening. than an indie game developer sitting on a gold mine that nobody's noticed, but it is a gold mine. But you put it out there and somebody makes a lot of money out of it. Mm, it's rare. But if people are able to make out of money out of your prototype, you can ride the wave. It will open a lot of opportunities for you. Because if that happens, you you have open source project that you wrote, and that is a gold mine. Essentially, you're a platform. I would say you're worried about the wrong thing. I'm worried more about North Koreans bombing me. That does happen a lot more frequently than indie game developers making billions of dollars. There's a lot more things that you need to worry about than somebody stealing your idea and you getting nothing out of it. Like I say, there, there's a greater chance of Kim Jong Un killing me than somebody steals my idea and I get nothing. Right? I have a bigger chance of getting in a car accident. I mean, there's a lot of things that are close to 0%, but it's not exactly zero. But people are not that worried. Uh, by the way, this video, this whole Code With Me video series, initially I intended to just work on my game, but but interaction is good. If your ideas are as amazing as you think they are, then go tell them to a successful game developer. They will make it better than you would, which should be your goal if you are passionate about it. You would want the best version of the project, right? And again, there's the actual numbers are against you if you think your idea itself is worth millions of dollars just out of pure statistics. Statistics are not the truth, but just realistically, it's rare. That's all I can say. Uh, Gooey, let me add this. I don't think anybody really knows the truth. When you talk about who's right, who's wrong, uh, I mean, I've been watching some mathematical concepts recently. The videos about some mathematical concepts, some of the underlying issues and stuff like that, proving stuff. It's very rare to prove something like causation. Um, Things like if you make a lot of money with your indie game, is it because you had a killer idea, or is it because of your implementation? Is it because of your marketing? There's so many variables other than just your general idea. Maybe it is the reason why a successful indie game developer made $1 million. It's so hard to say. I mean, people have a general understanding. There are things that are generally accepted by a lot of people, but then at the same time, it's really hard to argue who's got the truth. So while it's a while it's an extremely low probability, there are people that do go viral overnight. Personally, I would not bet on that. Personally, I wouldn't bet on myself going viral one day and becoming a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever, depending on the size of the people, the total amount of viewers. I'm betting on the other side. So I have a completely different strategy compared to someone who's looking to do a one hit wonder of the world, for example, right? Um, I'm just giving you my personal anecdote. But just because you have a very low probability of winning a lottery ticket does not mean that nobody's going to win a lottery ticket, win the lottery. So, you just got to do what you like and see what happens. Okay. I think Mr. Watermew has a really interesting point. Is the goal to be famous or make a profit living? Especially these days. Here's what I think. If you are a professional, a very good one, then most likely you are going to be famous in that field. You may not be famous worldwide, but whenever you have value, whenever you have something that is valuable that other people don't have, as in you're a professional with certain skills that other people want but don't have, you are going to be famous. It does not mean that your goal was to be famous, uh, but more people will notice you because you have something that is rare, right? Some people might have the fame as the goal itself. I see it more as a byproduct of having something that people value. Uh, and I think fame and profit almost go hand in hand. Not always, but a lot of times, right? Gooey says, "Yeah, I get it. I just try to make something that will profit me enough, and I like enough so that I can kickstart a game dev career. Optimistic, I know, but I'll try until I'm dead." Oh, yeah. I mean, just try different things. Have fun. The only people that I don't like are this type. If you say I'm going to download a Unity, I'm going to download the Unity engine, and I'm going to download certain assets, and I'm going to put it together, and I'm going to build a AAA game that makes me $1 billion, and all of that is going to happen within 1 week. No, that's at that point I'm going to just flat out say you're wrong, or maybe most likely you're wrong, or I might say I want nothing to do with you, whether you're right or wrong. I don't want anything to do with you if you say something like that. And I have something called on my Discord server, the Hall of Ask Holes. Ask Holes. So as long as you're not an asshole trying to make $1 billion out of a Unity asset that you downloaded, it's any given Sunday basically, right? Have you seen that movie? Like I said, people are generally bad at predicting stuff unless you have extremely limited environment where you have a lot of control and you just have a very few variables. In that case, predicting becomes pretty accurate. In most realistic cases, most people are wrong about the future, right? Do whatever. But my general recommendation is do it because you just enjoy making video games more than anything else. Don't do it because you think it's a good way to make money, which I think it's not the case for you, but I've seen a lot of people do that. Um, there are much better ways to make money other than building a video game. I do it because I would rather work on my own video game than play the best-selling AAA game from EA, for example. If I have free time, I'll sit down and build my own video game. So that's how much I enjoy it, and whether it brings me a lot of money or not, it's still fun for me. So that's good. Oh, holy shit! I've been streaming for an hour. I barely got any work done. Uh, Gooey says, not seen the film. No, my goal in life is to make games that engage with people's imagination. Zelda did. Yeah, something like Zelda would be way too big for a single game developer. Um, there was a game, sort of, it was pretty much an indie. It was a game about a cat running around. I really liked that idea, and I actually joined their Discord server. Um, because I felt like I could add a lot of value to it if they decided that, you know, I could be of help somehow. Uh, I mean, there's a lot of interesting indie game ideas out there. Uh, but the ideas are cheap, right? It's not really about ideas, but more about your implementation, I think, which goes back to what we said. So I think I've pretty much said everything I can think of right now about that issue. Sizer, welcome. Sizer says game dev is also very fun. I've learned a lot every day. Yeah. So a little switch of a topic here. I I enjoy game development a lot more than gaming. Uh, I really enjoyed playing Action Quake as a kid. Back in middle school, I would play Action Quake. I would rather play Action Quake than anything else at the time. Well, maybe not anything else, but most things at the time. Today, that interest has shifted to game development because I'm way too limited when I'm playing a game. I'm limited to what the studio has already set before me or set in front of me. And especially today, a lot of the game studios are way too political for me. So I hate that. Uh, I find the game dev itself to be a lot more interesting journey than going into some sort of a virtual reality that somebody had planned out for me. So game dev is more like a world that I can pretty much do anything that I want. So I'm pretty much my own character. That sounds a little weird, but it feels like I'm playing my own RPG game. The game dev itself, it feels like an RPG game to me. I don't know how other people feel about game development. I think how other people feel, most people, I think how most people feel about dev is very different from how I feel. Uh, I also think there's a lot of, well, I think there's a lot of other industries if you're just looking to make money. So yeah, only do it if it's something that you completely enjoy. Yeah, I think I'm gonna. Hmm. Yeah, Gui says kind of like an entertainer. You want to be the storyteller, not the storytellee. Yeah. Some games I really enjoy playing. Like recently, I really enjoyed playing The Ascent. At one point, I really enjoyed playing Overwatch, even though that was a long time ago now. Uh, I would probably still enjoy playing Action Quake, but again, if I have free time, I would most likely choose to work on my own game. So I think that's it for today. The stream is a little shorter than my usual stream, usual Code With Me stream, which lasts about 2 hours. Oh shit, my screen just died, which is perfect timing. So thanks guys for coming. Uh, let me switch. Let me. Okay, I can't do anything. I think my camera's dead. So I guess I'll stream again tomorrow. I gotta fix my mic settings. Uh, yeah. So the moral of the story for today is do game dev because you like it, but just because you enjoy doing it, not because you think you have something that's going to bring you $1 million. So that's it. Thanks, everybody.